Oh, and welcome back to the Java playlist. This video, we're going to be going over the switch statement. The switch statement is another decision structure. I've actually moved over to looking into the textbook that I used during my first year computer science classes. So I'll probably give you kind of a more detailed look instead of going off the top of my head and into programming Java because I'm not I haven't used the switch statements in a while, and they are useful. It's basically you're taking in an input, and that input is either triggering or uh, defaulting to an output. So the first thing we'll do, we're going to actually get the user to enter in a number. I'll keep it very simple for now, but show you how the switch statement works in a very basic sense. So we're going to declare an integer variable. And what we'll do after that is just prompt the user to enter in a number. Um, Please enter a number between 1 and 4 inclusive. So we will use what we know from our scanner. We need to declare, we should probably do that up here. Equals new. So now we need to accept that uh, input from the user. So we're going to be using number equals keyboard dot next int. And one thing that I was going to do actually was have a check to make sure that the number is uh, between 1 and 4. So is less than or equal to 4, or number is greater than or equal to 1. But with the switch statement, so since we're using this statement, like the switch statement actually has something called a default, and you'll see this. So we're not going to need this, but it's good to sort of validate your data as it comes into your program. Not every user is going to be inclined to follow instructions, so you kind of need to guide them along. And if they do, by accident or on purpose, enter in a number that's outside the range that you're looking for, you're going to have to check that so it doesn't cause your program to crash. But we won't use that. That's just something we'll keep in mind as we move forward. Another thing we'll use down the road is, I'm just going to show you a simple case of the switch, but if they don't enter the right number, we're going to be using something in future videos called a while loop to just keep the program running until we get a proper input, because if they enter the wrong input on this example, then the program just ends and they have to run the program again. But it's good to start simple and we'll build up to that. So the switch statement is as follows. You just have the keyword switch, and inside here, this is where the input is put in. So we're going to be inputting our number. And with a switch statement, we're going to have these things called cases. So case 1, case 2, case 3, and case 4. So this is just different cases for each integer that's possible to enter. I believe you can have integers and characters. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look back in the textbook whether or not you can have different variable. You can have. I'm sure you can have different data types, but in terms of how they're accepted in, uh, like, are you able to have conditionals and all that sort of stuff in there? But for now, we're just going to be simply using the integer. So when you have a case, you're going to have that, and then at the bottom here, you're going to have your default case. So the default is basically we're going to have a system dot out dot print line, and we're going to write invalid number, please try again. So this basically just says to a user who hasn't entered in any of these cases that they need to restart the program. So the first one we'll do. So what happens is that it ends up. Sorry, there's a helicopter going. It's on my video. Yeah, that's on my window. So what happens is that this number enters into the switch statement. It sees which case it needs to follow, and then once it hits this case, you can basically execute a block of code, however many statements needed. We'll start out with system.out.print, and we will just enter in you have entered in the number 1, and then what you have is a break statement. So this break basically it exits out of this switch statement, so the code can continue moving along. And for case 2, we'll just do this for simplicity's sake. And do this for number 2, 3, and 4. Invalid. So yeah, this is basically the outline of how a switch statement goes. You can make them more complicated by putting in many different statements. In fact, no, we'll save that for another video. But we'll run this and just show how it works. So please enter a number between 1 and 4, 3. You have entered the number 3. So that's how the switch statement works. I'll probably use it in a more complicated setting. Actually, we'll just show you that it can take in char, letter, and letter. We'll keep it. We won't get user input, but let's put D, and then case A, B, C, and D. So this should enter exit. You have entered the letter D. Oh, that's still going there. It won't matter. Yeah, this just asked for me to put it in. I forgot to comment that out, but we'll just do this. You've entered the letter D. And to show you what happens when you enter something outside of it, say we enter E, it just goes back to the default statement. So that's kind of its own check for making sure that the data entered is what you want. Like I said before, you usually use some sort of data validation check before entering into when you have user input put in, but we can continue that down the road. So that's it for the switch statement, and we'll carry on from here. We may use the switch statement again in a more complicated setting, but that's it for now in this video. Thanks a lot for watching.